About divine order, and I was thinking about how to talk about it this week, and I remembered way back to my tryout weekend. I don't know how many of you were here when Michael and I came for the first time to meet you all. We'd already met the board, and of course it was a really important weekend for us, and we were flying out from Tulsa via Dallas. You can't get there from here. We knew that from here, you know that already. So anyway, our flight went from Tulsa to Dallas. And when we hit Dallas, all of a sudden there was an ice storm, one of the biggest ice storms they had ever had, and all the monitors were blinking, cancel, cancel, cancel. All the flights were being canceled. Now Michael and I, sat there and we affirmed divine order. We affirmed we were one with the one presence, one power. If we were meant to be here, we'd get here. And if this was our church, we'd end up here anyway. So we stayed pretty cool. But there was a couple people behind us in the line who wasn't a unity person. I don't have to say what he was doing. He was having a hissy fit. He was yelling and screaming at anybody that worked for the airlines, and he was on his cell phone, and the movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, he was calling the bus depot, he was calling the train station, he was calling, cars, rentals, he was calling hotels, he was just fanatical trying to figure this out and to control it and to make something happen. And Michael and I just said, divine order. Well, it was a very miraculous event, because after about 2 hours, I don't know how long we waited, all of a sudden an announcement came up. There is a window where our flight could take off, a window. And ours was one of the only flights that took off that weekend, and Michael and I looked at each other. It's meant to be our church. It's divine order. And we saw the guy coming on the plane. He was worn out. The guy was absolutely worn out. But you see, the thought of us being here that weekend, and it was very much in harmony with divine will that we be here, pulled us up above the storm, lifted us up to another set of laws that said you can be here. This is in divine order. Now, divine order is, the apostle is James, son of Alphaeus. The color is a deep emerald green. Why? Because Charles Fillmore saw it in meditation. That's why. You can call it whatever color you want. The area of the body is the pit of the stomach, and we had one discernment, which was in the solar plexus. So the pit of the stomach is more behind the navel, and we'll talk about that a little later. But it is the most misunderstood power in the unity movement. And I have a friend that goes nuts over unity people, because no matter how bad something's going on, they're very chirpy, and they say cheerfully, it's all in divine order, and she just wants to strangle them. You've all seen people, you could have your arm broken, blood would be squirting out all over, and somebody would come up to you and say, it's all in divine order. No, a bleeding arm is not what I would call divine order. God never wills suffering. The human consciousness creates chaos, which is the cause. So some people use divine order like the fundamentalists use God's will, and that's not what it's about. Now I want to compare how divine order works in chaos. There's two different kinds. One is the chaos that I create. I tend to be my mind is very active. I'm a quick thinker. So when I work, I'm usually multitasking. I'm usually doing 3 things at once, here, there, everywhere. And sometimes my brain can get going faster than my body, and I can get ahead of myself, and I can make a mistake, I can drop something. That's the divine order of that, is my mental state of mind has created that chaos. That's the divine order of that. Everything happens under the law of cause and effect. That's what divine order means. The effect of that, the cause, is because of what I was doing. Now another way this happens is, say you decide to move to Cleveland. I don't know, it could happen. And then all of a sudden, once you've made that decision, you end up being laid off from your job, your rental lease isn't renewed or something. It's like the universe jumps in and supports your move to Cleveland. If it's not being supported, then that probably means a divine order of it not being supported is that you shouldn't be moving to Cleveland. Oh, well, look at my glass. Talk about divine order, but I haven't had glasses. See what I told you about my moving around too fast? Perfect. I'm having all kinds of examples today. I had a friend, and I think I told you this before, my best friend in ministerial school. She was trying to decide if she should quit her very successful job in nursing and go to ministerial school. And that very weekend, she flew home, was laid off from her job. Okay, God, the universe was supporting her decision. You need to go to ministerial school. It can feel like chaos, can it? When those things happen? When the universe supports us and takes away that which we need taken away so that we'll move on. Even a red light sometimes that slows me down, and with my quick mind, I don't always like to be slowed down, but every time I come to a red light, I always think, okay, the universe is trying to slow me down so I get back in the flow. Somebody pulls ahead of me in traffic, the universe is trying to slow me down because I'm out of the flow. And it's so important not to judge what's going on in our lives and each other's lives. When those things happen, when our life starts to look chaotic, not to judge it. I mean, my relatives sometimes look at my life, oh, there's Ann Marie again. She's moved here, she's moved there, she's done this, done that. To them, it looks like chaos. But to me, it's the spiral of my evolving evolution of my unfolding. And that takes some change. That takes some movement to evolve. You can't just stay the same. You're constantly changing. It's like when you clean house, you have to rearrange your furniture. Sometimes when I'm cleaning house, my house doesn't happen very often. But when I do clean house, it looks a little chaotic. Neil, I figure if God wanted me to have a clean house, he'd have given me one. Neil Donald Walsh once said, life is conspiring in your favor. Oh, I love that. It's conspiring in your favor. So when something happens, go with it. There's a reason. He said, it may not always look that way, but it is. I assure you, everything that is happening just the way it must, in order for you to have the opportunity to create the experience of yourself for which you yearn. The idea behind all this is to give you a chance to become and to know at the highest level who you really are. Everything that happens, that's the only way I can handle what's going on in the world right now, is to know that, we're creating this chaos, and this is happening to get us to shift in some way. Now, grace is the higher thought that God holds of us, that pulls us up out of it if we don't get out of the way. And that's a trick. If we finally get out of the way, God can pull us up out of it like God pulled us up out of the ice storm, one of the only flights that took out that weekend, because we got out of the way. A shaman once described it as the ego, our ego being like an ice cube in a glass of water, trying desperately not to melt, wanting to maintain the hard rigidity of the self, no matter what. Divine order pulls the ego into that melting, into its higher being, where it doesn't lose itself, it gains the whole glass of water. Divine order pulls it up. Now when we resist, it feels like we're disappearing. It feels like something's going wrong. When the wicked witch said, I'm melting, it wasn't a bad thing. There was a part of her that needed to melt to become the real divine being she was meant to be. So it's important not to judge those appearances when the outer doesn't appear to be in divine order. Another example I had, and I've shared with you before, the time when I drove from Seattle to Tulsa all by myself, and when I was moving to the church there. And usually when I take a trip, I've got all kinds of people that are glad to go with me. I got my best friend. I say go, she'd be with me. She couldn't come that time. I got my sister. I say I'm going on a trip, she'd go with me. She couldn't go with me. My 2 sons couldn't go with me. Nobody I knew could go with me. I thought, gosh, do I have to drive across the country all by myself? That's a long way from Seattle to Tulsa. But do you know what the divine order of that was? I needed that time alone before starting a new church or going to a new church. I needed that quiet. And it was so empowering. It was so relaxing. It was so joyful, all by myself. Do you see how if I would have resisted that, if I would have forced somebody to go with me, hired somebody to go with me, I wouldn't have had that experience that I needed. So the practical level, we have to change our beliefs that there's some capricious God out there that's doing it to us again. God is not a capricious God that answers our needs. Now, what do I mean by that? Prayer is not filling out request form number 509. I am requesting this, God. No, divine order is working through your consciousness, and the more needy you are, the more neediness you will experience. What is your field of resonance? That's why when Scripture says, to those who have, more will be given. To those who don't have, even what you have will be taken away. If you don't have it, like me trying to turn the microphone on today when I didn't have it on, it wasn't in my field of resonance. How could I have it work? And that's the same way when we try to do something in life and we do not have it in our field of resonance. Instead, we're vibrating to fear, to scarcity, to the sky is falling, the sky is falling. How can our good manifest through that? So to understand divine order, we have to understand this field of resonance. We don't get what we want, we get what we resonate with. So we have to aim for a higher vibrational state of being, and that's why we pray, we meditate, to lift ourselves up. You know, when I was growing up, we didn't have a lot. And my family believed that greed was wrong, and I believe that greed is wrong. But in that sort of belief system, I used to pray to God, because I would be afraid sometimes we didn't have a lot. And I would pray, God, when I go through life, at least make sure I always have just what I need. I'm not asking for much, God. I don't need a lot. Just give me whatever I need. And you know what? That's what I've had most of my life. Whatever I've needed. Until I came into unity and found out I could have an abundant life if I had that as my field of resonance. I'm not saying we all have to be millionaires. Believe me, I don't. I'm not. But my field of resonance now is I can have an abundant life. I can live abundantly. Doesn't mean I have a lot in the bank. That's not what it's about. It's about trusting God as source and substance in every moment, with that field of resonance, that there's always enough. Jesus said, seek the kingdom first, and all else is given. Why? Because when you're vibrating at that field of resonance, of that higher vibrational state of the kingdom, everything you want is going to be manifest. You don't have to have money in the bank. Everything you desire is going to be manifest, because you have that field of resonance of the kingdom of God. How beautiful, how wonderful, but I had to change my vibrational state to a higher field of resonance, a resonance of love, of peace, of health, of wholeness. Divine order is also under the law of compression. Oh, I love this one. The law of compression, because you see, the world is in time and space. And the world says, if you want this, you have to do this, 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 and this, and it's going to take this long. But divine order is under the law of compression. We've got the holy instant. Divine order means it can happen instantly, like my healing did. You can have it now. The trick is how to hold that resonance. I can have resonance here with you all, and then, 2 days later when I'm out in the city or watching the news, I can lose it real quick. It's holding that resonance that we have when we come here together, to hold that higher vibrational state. Divine order, we are on an expanded journey to the fullness of the Christ consciousness, and we will make it in spite of ourselves. We can't not make it. Just like Michael and I couldn't not make it here that weekend, because the divine will, the higher idea of us, is pulling us there. We cannot not make it. Let's get back to divine order being at the pit of the stomach, right behind the navel. It's like right where the umbilical cord of the mother is connected to the child. That's where divine order is. It's like your own mother saying to you, whatever happens, it's for your own good. Oh, did we hate that when they used to say that? But it's true. Divine order is telling us, I know this doesn't look what we good now, but it's for our own good. And divine order nourishes the child, gives it whatever is needed. When we affirm divine order, we're there. We're connected. Charles Roth once said, its responsibility, meaning divine order, its responsibility is to control the orderliness, the harmony, and the right timing of the growing or unfolding process, smoothly, effortlessly, harmoniously. We can breathe. How do you know when you are in the resonance of divine order? Well, when you're in the flow, when there's no struggle, when you're relaxed, there's no tension, you feel a weight lifted, you're in the flow of divine order. I went on the internet and read this about divine order, that it's always in the now moment. Each moment is an incredible event, yet humans fall into complacent vibration of sameness, numb to the wonders, magic, and synchronicity of their lives. Each moment is a personal connection with the divine. And when you stay in the present moment, conscious of your own magnificence, viewing events with joy, gratitude, and appreciation, there is a flow, a connection to the higher matrix, that higher resonance, in the divine weaving in which all things are possible. Doesn't that feel good? Don't y'all want some divine order? I'm going to invite Charlotte to come up right now. Charlotte is my wonderful assistant here at church. And Charlotte's always talking about divine order. This woman loves divine order, so I thought, okay, Charlotte, you tell everybody here why you like divine order. Do you want to come on up? Do we have a mic? Let's see, here it is. Now wait, I got to put my glasses, the glasses without the glass missing. And let's see, Michael, can you, oh wait, I think, is that working? See if it works.
Hello.
Is that working? Okay.
Okay, so this is in divine order, right now.
Put the mic real close to your mouth.
In this moment, we're in divine order. And my speaking is going to be in divine order. Not used to this mic. How high do I need to go?
Just close to your mouth.
Okay. Divine order is my favorite daily word thing. I've been using it since I was young, but I didn't know what it was, because when I was young, there was a lot of anxiety within me. I'm not sure where that came from. I was afraid of a lot of things. My life wasn't chaotic that much, but I was afraid, and I'm not sure why. Might have been the reason I came to this lifetime. Over the course of years, I was afraid of loss. I was afraid of lack. I was afraid of not being enough in relationships. So many things that young people experience. And I got married, and then I had children, and then I had to be anxious about a lot of more other things. The more that came into my life, the more fear there was of loss. In the 70s, I found the Unity Church in Springfield, Missouri, and heard this thing called divine order, and all of a sudden something spoke to me. Because as a kid, I always felt there was something greater than myself. I knew that. I could feel it inside, but I didn't know how to access that. Didn't know how to get there. So divine order was the two words that got me there. Who knows why, but it worked for me. It's like a little life mantra that got me to a place of trust so that the fear could relax and the anxiety could relax, a place of peace so that I could let go of all those little things that have been bugging me for so many years. Now, it wasn't there the whole time, of course. It was like I had to come, it came and went, and I had to remember to use those two little words when that fear would rise up. We all know what that feels like. It's like, here comes the wave. Okay. Well, when I felt the wave, I had to be aware of that wave, and as soon as I felt it, I could close my eyes and say, it's in divine order. And it wasn't like a magic trick or anything. It was just the words that worked and resonated for me. I think each of us has to find our own words that resonate. But those were mine, and they still work for me. So I have a little story, several actually, to go with this. The first one is, I was working at a residential treatment center for very disturbed children in Denver. And I was a play therapist working with the little ones. Now, these children had been abused and had horrible lives, very chaotic, and their brains had developed chaotically. They lived on the edge of the fight or flight response all the time. They were either ready to fight or ready to run at a moment's notice. So I had this one little guy that I was in the playroom with, and we came out of the room, and immediately he took off. And all of my fear went, ooh, I need to be able to control this kid. It's dangerous if I don't control this kid. Fear, right? So immediately I felt that coming up, and I'd had enough experience that I was like, oh, here it comes. I know what that is. So I stopped, actually sat down on a step, and I said, divine order. This is in divine order. And I just sat there, and I could feel that go down, relaxation. And that little head peeked around the corner and said, are you coming? He didn't keep running when I didn't chase him. And so when my fear resolved, so did his. That taught me a huge lesson about how my feelings affect those of the people around me and my environment. So, the other thing I wanted to speak about was one of the greatest fears I had was of losing my loved ones. And so when my husband got cancer, and I realized that it was not curable, and we had 3 years to get ready for it, I didn't know that at the time, but I learned that later, I probably said divine order 1,000,000 times a day, because I was trying to let go of the fear of letting go and that loss. So as it got time for him to leave and make his transition, even more it came. So lots more divine order. But here's what happened. Yes, he left, and that was, part of his life plan. My job in all of that was to figure out how to manage my own fear and to be able to let go. That was a lifelong fear. When I came into this world, I was afraid of loss. And here it was now. And interestingly enough, he left in a most easy and natural way. It was a lovely experience with my children and his best friend, in which we told stories about Dad. And everybody was smiling and laughing, and he would have loved that. That's his favorite thing to do. So divine order was present, even though it was the passing of a loved one. Huge lesson for me, huge. No matter what comes along in life, I realize now, because the worst I thought had happened now, I knew that divine order was present and able to help me move through whatever situation came up in just the right and perfect way for me. So, thank you. Thank you.
Let's just close our eyes for a moment and then take those words into our field of resonance. Divine order. Whatever fear you may have, allow those words, divine order, to settle you, to free you, to relax you. Divine order. Allow those words to fill you with courage, to empower you, that no matter what the road ahead, you are walking in the flow of divine order. And as our field of resonance shifts to that higher place, we walk in the resonance of grace and ease. All that is needed shows up, and all is taken care of in perfect divine order. We are so blessed. We are so grateful. We are so loved. And we just say thank you, Father, Mother God, in the nature of the Christ. And so it is, so it truly is. Amen.
Please join us in singing Seek Ye First. It's in the bulletin.